Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're doing something pretty special, actually. You've given us, an early listen to WyDoubt's new album, Crying at Clai's, A Space Odyssey, which doesn't drop until April 12th.
Right.
And nobody's heard it yet.
Nobody's heard it.
And so we're going to share our totally raw first impression thoughts with you.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of like you're listening to this album alongside us for the first time.
Exactly. We're going to react in real time.
Exactly. So let's get right to it. Right away, it's obvious this album is more than just a bunch of songs.
Yeah.
This is presented like a concept album, like an interplanetary space flight to a place called WyTopia.
A planet of rain and tears.
Yes, a planet of rain and tears. And the album opens with what sounds like a flight attendant announcement for Interplanetary Spaceflight 303 going straight to Wytopia. But this isn't your typical safety briefing.
Right.
There are these really almost philosophical details. They mention the option of just leaving all your baggage behind.
Remember, upon leaving, you may choose to leave your baggage here and start a new life. The decision is yours. Thank you.
To start fresh when you get there, I mean, right away, that's thought-provoking. What was your initial take on that rather unusual invitation?
Well, what I found interesting is it sets up the album's whole idea right away. That invitation to ditch our baggage. It speaks to this idea of deep emotional cleansing to deal with deep sorrow. It almost feels like our past selves, with all our experiences and everything, might not be the right fit for this new emotional world.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. And that leads us right into the first track on the album, which is called Beer in the Morning. This song just hits you with this raw, exposed kind of emotion.
Yeah.
The lyrics are so vulnerable, it feels like you're looking at someone's very private pain.
If we're thinking back to that space flight we were talking about,
right.
This track feels like that sudden takeoff, the turbulent part. The lines, you saw the vision, abandoned the mission, and now I'd be crying at Clay's house. You immediately get this picture of shattered hope.
This feeling of being betrayed. There's this huge contrast between that initial excitement and the despair in the now.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what was that vision they lost?
Yeah.
And how did abandoning it lead to so much pain?
And the imagery used in the song is, well, it's vivid, but almost disturbing in how specific it is. Beer in the morning and for lunch, cocaine in the cabinet, doing donuts in the parking lot. These aren't just casual lines. They paint a picture of someone dealing with some serious pain through really self-destructive behavior.
Right.
Like a desperate attempt to numb the hurt. What do you think those images mean in the context of this journey to Wytopia?
Maybe they show the way grief distorts your reality. How deep disappointment can just throw everything into chaos. In the context of Wytopia, maybe these are the things you see and hear in a world drenched in sorrow.
Right.
The desperate ways people try to cope in such a place.
Yeah. And then there's this line that keeps coming back, I don't ever want to love again. It's like a mantra. It really hammers home the feeling of being completely broken. It's more than just sadness. It's like a serious vow to never be vulnerable again. What does that tell us about how deep the pain goes?
That repeated line, it really drives home the feeling of damage.
Yeah.
Deep emotional damage.
Yeah.
It says that this pain isn't temporary, it's made of deep fear. This reluctance to ever risk that hurt again.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, is this journey to Wytopia about finding peace and being alone? Or is it a step towards facing that pain, maybe overcoming it eventually?
That's a good point. The next track we're going to talk about is You Say You Let Me Quit Playing, and this one feels like the atmosphere changed.
Yeah.
Like we ran into a different kind of emotional place on our trip. The tone's lighter. It hints at a new connection, maybe a change in how the person sees things.
It's interesting how that's placed right after all that despair. We're suddenly given this possibility of something new, a bit of hope. The lyrics about taking someone on vacation, let's go see the kids, suggest reaching out.
Right.
Wanting to connect and maybe go back to something normal makes you think, is this a short break from Wytopia's sadness? Or the first sign of a way out?
But then it quickly shifts to this instant, strong attraction. She looked like Alicia Keys, and you get all these very specific details. She came from London. I really love how you speak. It's like this whirlwind romance happening right there in the song. So different from the lingering heartbreak we just heard. What do you think those details add to this sudden shift?
They ground the story in a real world, even with this whole fantastical space-like concept. It highlights how fast new connections can form, sometimes when you least expect it, even after going through a lot emotionally. It suggests that wanting connection, being attracted to someone, can still happen even in the saddest of places.
Yeah. And the way this connection grows is fast, to say the least. Well, we kicked it with her once, now she mine.
Only kicked it with her once, now she mine.
I ain't planning to last more than a night. Now we talking every night. Baby, we hire for life. It's almost like he's joking. With this instant, over-the-top commitment, is this a real turning point or just a way to distract himself from the pain?
I think there are a couple ways to look at how fast and strong this connection is.
Okay.
On one hand, it could be that exciting feeling of new love, a genuine spark.
Right.
But on the other hand, it might be him trying to escape, diving into something new and exciting, even if it doesn't last, to forget the pain for a bit.
And the imagery here changes completely too.
Pink pussy,
Pete,
bright,
Sprite,
Whitney for the house, pinky rings for the wife, Bill Russell with the
ice. It's extravagant, playful, it's like a celebration. It's a far cry from that beer and cocaine. How does this shift in imagery contribute to the overall feeling of this part of the journey?
It really underlines the change in emotion. The darker, chaotic feeling of beer in the morning gives way to something brighter, maybe even a bit reckless, as he expresses this newfound attraction. It's like a burst of color in WyTopia, showing that joy can exist even with sadness.
It's interesting how some lines keep popping up in different forms in music, and we see it here too. Not the exact words, but the ideas. It makes you think about how relationships and emotions kind of go in circles, how certain patterns come back in new situations.
That's important to think about. While the specifics of each relationship might be different, some basic patterns of connection, desire, even conflict can come up again and again, just in different forms. It speaks to how these emotional cycles keep going in our lives.
Right. And then we have an interlude, The Flight to Wytopia. It's spoken word, which really reinforces the whole concept of the album.
Yes.
It pulls us further into this world you were describing. What stood out to you in this interlude that helped us understand the album's concept better?
What's crucial about this part is that it makes the listener really feel like they're part of the story. The description of the spaceship entering Wytopia's atmosphere, how time slows down. It creates this surreal feeling, as if the emotional journey itself is warping reality. It's a powerful way to signal that we're entering a different kind of place where the normal rules might not apply.
You'll see another phenomenon.
And the image of
the three moons of
Wytopia,
because of
by
centuries of rain and tears,
is both haunting and beautiful. It's such a poetic way to show the heavy weight of sorrow that defines this place. What does that kind of poetic explanation add to the album's emotional impact?
It makes it more than just personal stories. By giving this almost mythical reason for Wytopia's sadness, it suggests something deeper and universal about the pain being explored. It's a creative way to look at these tough themes, giving them a kind of otherworldly meaning.
Totally. After that interlude, we come to saying that I'm on her way. This song feels like the relationship dynamics change again. It's more complex, maybe not as straightforward. What was your first impression of the relationship in this track?
Well, the line, she only come around for the benefit, right away, tells you there's a transaction going on.
Right.
It makes you question what each person wants, and if one is taking advantage of the other, or if their needs are not being met, then you have these lines that are more personal and intimate. She took my name on like a letterman, she called me Dennis because she know I'm innocent. It suggests they have a history. They know each other well and trust each other, even with the possible imbalance you mentioned earlier. How do these contrasting lines make the relationship more difficult to understand?
They create a sense of mystery. It's a relationship where they're close, but there could be distance or uneven power. It shows how human connections can have many sides, with real closeness and maybe some not-so-selfless reasons mixed together.
And the imagery, again, is interesting. Let's turn this into a movie. I'm going Max and you Black. It's this weird mix of intense experience and something more passive, more detached.
Right. Then we have I Like to Stare at the Moon. It feels like a pause, a more introspective moment amidst all these relationship issues.
Right.
The moon keeps coming up as an image, right? What do you think it symbolizes in this album?
Well, the moon often represents things like reflection, longing, and how emotions come and go in cycles. In this song, with the line, "Think about you, baby, you know you're a star," it seems to be someone he cares about but who's far away. Someone who shines on his thoughts and desires from afar.
There's this real longing to connect. Hop in the room, I'll be there soon.
Meaning
Wherever you are. It's this desire to close the distance between them,
Yeah.
whether it's physical or emotional. What does that need for instant connection tell us about how he's feeling at this point in the journey?
Even though he's staring at the moon, which feels distant, there's a deep desire for closeness. Being willing to go wherever this other person is shows how much he longs for them and how important that connection is to him. It shows his vulnerability and his need for reassurance. The next song is "Let's Dance in the Rain." This one really seems to be about shared pain.
Yeah.
And finding comfort in that shared
Let's
experience.
dance in the rain. I don't know nothing but pain. Me and you one in the same. Shawty, we gang.
That line really hit me. What does this idea of a shared gang of pain say about their bond?
That line perfectly captures the idea of finding a sense of belonging through going through tough times together.
Yeah.
It's a bond built not on happiness, but on mutual suffering. It's like finding someone who truly gets your pain because they feel it too.
Yeah.
And that creates a connection that's unique, maybe even essential, in a world filled with sorrow. But then there's this underlying feeling of something being off, of not being treated fairly.
This could be
This
us,
could
but
be
you
us,
playing.
but
I'm
you
just a
playing.
part of the
I'm just a
game.
part of
I'm
the
just a
game.
shock in the tank.
It's raw and honest, expressing how he feels used, not fully seen in the relationship. How does this part of the game feeling clash with the idea of a shared game?
Using the word game creates a contrast with that shared feeling.
Right.
It suggests that one person has power and the other feels manipulated, like their feelings aren't taken seriously. This shows how complicated relationships based on shared pain can be. Even when they understand each other's pain, there can be imbalances, and one person can feel taken advantage of.
And then we have another interlude, turbulence and hallucinations. This one really ramps up the surreal feeling of our flight.
It does.
It's like we're going deeper into a more intense, maybe even confusing emotional state. What do these warnings about turbulence and hallucinations foreshadow about the rest of our trip through WyTopia?
The flight attendant's announcement is like a signal to the listener. It prepares them for a deeper look into the more disturbing parts of this emotional landscape. Flying through certain mysteries behind the black suggests that we'll have to face the unknown.
Yeah.
The parts of our minds that we don't understand, the darker parts,
Right.
the bumpy ride and further time distortion,
Yeah.
are metaphors for a more turbulent, maybe even confusing emotional experience.
That warning about potential hallucinations and or an intense confusion because of mixed signals to your brain disrupting your thoughts and feelings is really striking. It's like a direct caution about not trusting our own perceptions when we're dealing with intense emotions. What do you make of that?
It's a strong reminder that when we go deep into our emotions, our view of things
Extreme
can get
conditions of the
distorted.
layer sends
The mixed signals
to
could be
your
conflicting
brain,
feelings,
disrupting your
past
thoughts and
traumas that haven't
feelings.
been dealt with,
These
or just the
abnormalities
difficulty of figuring out what's true and what's just our feelings when we're overwhelmed by sadness. It suggests that the songs that come after this might explore these more subjective and maybe even distorted inner worlds.
And that part about the vent bot for help is such a specific, weird detail.
It is.
It adds to this feeling of being in another world but still relatable somehow. It's almost darkly funny. How does this weirdness contribute to the overall experience of the album?
The Ventbot adds a bit of dark humor.
Yeah.
It's a strange coping mechanism in this fantastical world that still feels emotionally real. It acknowledges how intense things are while offering a weird kind of comfort. Even in this bizarre journey, there's something, even if it's a machine, to help you process overwhelming feelings.
After that intense interlude, we get, "Baby, let's keep it simple." This track feels like he wants things to be clear and straightforward after all the emotional complexity we've heard. What does this longing for simplicity tell us about how he's feeling at this point?
The first line, "I got too much of a mental, you're the only one I'm into, I can't read your big signal," perfectly shows how emotionally drained he is and how frustrated he is by the lack of communication in the relationship. He wants a simple, easy connection. He wants to cut through all the noise and truly understand the other person.
There's this contrast between what each of them wants. I want to take you to trips to Nigeria. You give me bread like it's trivia. It's like on one side you have grand romantic gestures, and on the other something that feels dismissive, lacking emotional weight. What does this difference highlight about how disconnected they might be?
It shows a fundamental mismatch in how they express and understand love. One offers big gestures, amazing experiences,
Right.
while the other gives something ordinary and maybe emotionally empty. It emphasizes how hard it is to truly satisfy each other when they speak such different love languages.
That theme of miscommunication runs through the whole song. They struggle to figure out what the other means.
Right.
I think a lot of people can relate to that in their own relationships.
Absolutely.
Why do you think miscommunication is such a big deal in songs about love and loss?
Miscommunication often causes problems in relationships because human emotions are complex. We understand words and actions based on our own past and what we expect, which leads to misunderstandings and unmet needs. It's part of being vulnerable when you're close to someone.
The next track is Just Looking at Flight Tickets, which brings in uncertainty.
Yeah.
It could go either way, stronger commitment or leaving. What does just looking at flight tickets symbolize in this relationship journey?
It represents being in limbo,
Yeah,
weighing the options. He's thinking about escaping, leaving the situation,
right.
but he hasn't bought the tickets yet, which means he's still attached, hesitant to fully commit to leaving. A crucial moment of decision.
Then you have this intense line, fall in love and help me die in it. It's so dramatic, almost fatalistic.
Yeah.
How strong is the emotion conveyed in that line?
That line shows complete surrender.
Yeah.
He's willing to be consumed by love, even if it means potential heartbreak or losing himself. It speaks to wanting to be totally immersed in love. A maybe unrealistic expectation of love's power and how long it will last.
But then there's also this feeling of being totally swept away by love in a good way. I can't keep my cool. Life is like a dream when I'm with you. I feel everything when I'm with you. It's so powerful, almost intoxicating. How do these seemingly opposite feelings coexist in the song?
It shows how paradoxical and intense love can be. It can bring immense joy and a feeling of being overwhelmed, like you're completely exposed. The dreamlike feeling suggests an almost unbelievable happiness, while feeling everything implies both the incredible highs and the potential lows.
And then we have another unusual interlude. Drinks on the house and a personal interruption. This is where the album takes this unexpected and very personal turn. What was your reaction to that?
The announcement about free drinks is lighthearted and unexpected, a little break from the emotional intensity, but then the captain's interruption, putting his wife on the loudspeaker, completely changes things.
Yeah.
It makes it so intimate and vulnerable. It blurs the lines between performance and real life.
It totally pulls us out of the spaceflight idea. And into something much more personal. It's like we're listening in on a private moment. How does this affect the listener's connection to the album and the artist?
This intrusion creates a strong sense of intimacy and vulnerability. The album feels less polished, more like a direct, raw message from the artist.
Right.
It deepens the connection by showing a personal side that goes beyond the story being told.
And this leads right into I Blame You. After that personal interlude, the lyrics here are so direct and accusing.
They are.
What kind of emotion do you think this track reflects?
Saying I blame you over and over shows a clear emotion. Resentment,
Yeah.
placing the responsibility for the pain on the other person.
Right.
It suggests he's in that stage after a breakup where anger and needing to find fault are the dominant feelings.
Still having feelings and being unable to get past what happened. How does this make the blame more complicated?
It shows the blame isn't straightforward. He still has feelings for her. He recognizes what they lost, what could have been. So blaming her is more of a painful necessity than just pure anger.
And then there's that dark warning. Come dance with the devil, I dance slow. It's chilling and evocative. What kind of feeling does that final image create for this part of the album?
That line suggests he's entering a darker emotional place. He's willing to embrace destructive things, bad behaviors because of a heartbreak.
Much
The
like
slow
the
dance
thermosphere.
implies he's choosing
The conditions of this layer may make you feel like you're losing your mind at times. If this happens,
The next song
call
is
over
You
a
Make Me
vent
Lose My
bot,
Mind.
and they will help
And it
you
really
and guide
captures
you
that
through
feeling
the
of
rest of the
being pushed to your limit, of a
Thank you
relationship
for
driving
flying
someone
with
right
WyDoubt.
out. What does that loss of control mean in the context of it?
The repeated line, "You make me lose my mind, do it all the time," shows how overwhelmed and out of control he feels because of what the other person is doing. In Wytopia, this could represent the disorienting, damaging effects of being sad for so long and being in turbulent relationships, where your sense of self and stability can be eroded.
There's such raw desperation in the lyrics, a plea for things to change. Why you can't just try one more time. It shows how tired he is of fighting, how much he wants a different outcome. What does this plea say about his hope or lack of it?
That plea shows he still has a little bit of hope, a desire to fix things, even though he's so frustrated. He hasn't completely given up on the relationship. He still wants her to change the destructive pattern.
Then we have I'm Not Sober Enough, which goes into themes of intoxication and how the lines between what's real and what's not get blurred when you're trying to cope with emotional pain. What does relying on substances say about how strong these feelings are?
Right away, the first line tells us he's using substances to escape, numb the pain. The line, "But last night felt like love," hints that he's not seeing things clearly. Can't tell if the connection is real or just the drugs. It shows how much he's hurting, that he can't handle it without altering his state.
There's vulnerability in lines like, "You give me what the draws, and I'm not sober enough." It's almost like the relationship is an addiction. He can't break free from it, even though it's hurting him. What kind of cycle does this create?
It creates a cycle of dependence. The relationship causes emotional pain, making him rely on unhealthy ways to cope. It's a situation where getting away from the relationship feels as hard as quitting drugs.
Then there's She Said, Why You Call Me? It's short, but captures that lack of communication and different priorities in a broken relationship. What does this simple question reveal about the distance between them?
That question says a lot about how they're not communicating. They're drifting apart, he doesn't understand her needs, and she might feel unwanted, maybe even bothered by his call. It shows how wide the emotional gap has become.
Mentioning 2023 love stories grounds these very personal themes in today's world.
Yeah.
Maybe highlighting what's hard about relationships today. What do you think he means by 2023 love stories?
It's probably a way to put these complicated emotions into a modern context. It could be alluding to how technology, social media, and changing ideas about relationships can both help and hurt intimacy, leading to unique challenges in how we communicate and connect in this day and age.
We then have a short but powerful interlude.
Hello again. We have
Exiting
now
the
entered the
mesosphere and the
stratosphere.
captain's sentiment.
The conditions of
flight
this
attendant
layer
says
and the
time is
last
no
layer
longer
are
slowing down.
drastically different.
And then the captain just comes out,
Fuck
depression.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that sudden, blunt message?
The flight attendant saying that signals a return to normal time. But it's the captain's outburst that cuts through everything with raw emotion. Fit depression is defiant, rejecting the overwhelming sadness that seems to be everywhere in WyTopia. It's unexpected strength, a glimmer of hope for beating emotional struggle.
It's a raw, defiant moment that breaks through the story with something very human and relatable. Then we have Now I'm Lying on the Stand. This track moves into regret and accountability after a relationship ends.
It does.
It's like a trial. What kind of feeling do those legal words bring?
Words like Bible underhand and my part was cut out of the plan instantly make you feel judged. You have to be accountable, and there are painful consequences for past actions.
Right.
It suggests that he's looking at himself, feeling the weight of responsibility for the relationship ending.
He also feels misunderstood, judged by people on the outside. Your group chat played jury, but they ain't understand us. It speaks to how lonely a breakup can be.
Right.
That feeling that no one else gets what you went through. Why do you think people feel judged by others so often during breakups?
Relationships are personal and complicated. People on the outside only see bits and pieces. They don't know the whole history, the struggles the couple went through. This can lead to misunderstandings and judgments that feel wrong to those involved in the breakup.
And the unhealthy coping mechanisms are back. I keep drinking till I drown. Ain't no better they can hand us. It's bleak and hopeless.
Yeah.
He doesn't see any other way to deal with his pain. What does this say about how he's feeling emotionally at this point?
It shows deep despair. He feels trapped in unhealthy patterns. He's lost hope in finding better ways to cope, so he turns to self-destructive behavior to escape, maybe even to punish himself.
The next song is Drinking Every Night, which continues the themes of loneliness and searching for comfort, or maybe just forgetting everything in alcohol. But even with the pain, there's a bit of hope. His house ain't quite a home, but it's okay, because we can renovate. What does that little image of renovation say amidst all the sadness?
That image of renovating offers a small but significant spark of hope. It suggests he wants to rebuild, create a place where he belongs, even though he's hurting now. shows he's willing to invest in the future, even if it's uncertain.
But then there's this almost contradictory line. Never meant to let a good day be a good thing. Don't hesitate. It's complicated, almost like he's sabotaging himself, scared of being happy. What do you think about that conflict within him?
That line shows he might be afraid of being vulnerable again. Maybe he's learned to associate happiness with pain. He subconsciously resists fully enjoying good things because he's afraid of being disappointed again. It's a complicated emotional state where past hurts affect the present.
We then have I've been thinking of you, which brings us back to longing and the push and pull that's so common in modern relationships, even after they end.
Right.
The line, I show you my heart, but I can't leave it with you, really captures that tension. What does that guardedness say about his past?
That line beautifully expresses the vulnerability and fear of being hurt again.
Yeah.
It's something that can linger after past relationships. Showing his heart means he's opening up,
Right.
but not being able to fully give it to her suggests he's learned to protect himself. He's hesitant to be completely vulnerable again.
He also hints at breaking up and getting back together, highlighting those repeated patterns, how hard it is to truly move on from someone important. Why do you think these cycles are so common in romantic relationships?
Those cycles often happen because of issues that haven't been resolved. Lingering feelings or just the comfort of familiarity, even if the relationship is bad for you.
Yeah.
It can be hard to resist what you know, even when you know it's not good for you.
The Rumors You Heard is next, and it deals with miscommunication, how things are perceived versus how they are, and trying to clear up misunderstandings after a breakup. The defensive tone in, nah, I can explain, like for real, the stories you heard, they not about you, is obvious. What does that defensiveness say about his position in this situation?
It shows that he feels accused and misunderstood. He needs to explain and reassure her, which means that rumors are spreading, and he feels like he has to defend himself, at least to her.
It's about how we see ourselves versus how others see us,
Yeah.
especially after a messy breakup. Why is it so hard to control what people say about a breakup?
Breakups involve many different perspectives and feelings. Once a story starts spreading, it's tough to control it. People interpret things based on their own biases and experiences. Not having all the information leads to speculation and stories that are often wrong.
Finally, we reach, again, you belong right here.
This track
You belong
feels like
right
a
here.
direct, maybe even
Let me give you
possessive
an idea.
ending to the album's emotional journey.
Yeah.
The tone changes quite a bit. What feeling does this final assertive statement leave you with?
How direct and possessive it is suggests unresolved feelings. Maybe he's not ready to let go. It ends the album in a way that's more immediate, less introspective, leaving the listener with a sense of tension and the feeling that his emotional journey isn't over.
So we've taken this early deep dive into Crying at Clai's, a space odyssey, and it's clear this album is a deeply emotional and musically interesting trip. It's raw, vulnerable, and explores love, loss, and the complexities of human connection,
Yes.
all wrapped in this unique concept of a space flight to a WyTopia. For you, experiencing these snippets for the first time with us, what are your initial thoughts? What stood out to you most as we listened together?
I was really struck by how honest it is.
It portrays the messiness of human emotions without holding back. The album doesn't shy away from heartbreak, self-doubt, and the struggle to connect. Using the spaceflight idea elevates these personal experiences, makes them feel universal, and makes you think about the weight of all the sadness in the world.
Absolutely. And for you, listening along, what resonated with you? Were there any particular tracks or lyrics that jumped out? What's your overall vibe after this early listen? And if you had to give Crying at Clai's, A Space Odyssey, an initial rating based on these first impressions, on a scale of 1 to 10, what number comes to mind?
As we wait for the full album to drop on April 12th, this glimpse into the journey through WyTopia gives us a lot to think about. WyDoubt has created something that feels both deeply personal and relatable. It makes us think about our own experiences with love, loss, and searching for meaning in our own emotional landscapes.
And on that note, here's a final thought for you to consider. How does an album that's so open about vulnerability and pain not only reflect our inner worlds, but maybe offer a weird kind of comfort or connection in those shared human experiences? Thanks for taking this early dig dive with us. We'll catch you next time.